welcome to a USC 2025 preview edition of the OHIO podcast. Do us a big favor if you don't mind, everybody, and smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, ring the bell so you get notified every time we go live or we drop new content just like this. If you're new to our previews, welcome. Every single year, Chris and I preview every single Big Ten team in this conference. We call them our two-a-days. That's right. We do two Big Ten teams every single week from this week on to the beginning of the season. Chris, we're starting out on the West Coast in LA. We're talking USC Trojans first off. Let us know what you think about what we think in this preview down in the comment section below. And make sure you hang around. We have Brandon from Light the Torch podcast will be joining us in just a few minutes. We're going to be interviewing him for this preview. And then hang around to the very end. Chris and I will give you our predictions on the season. Chris, USC, year number 2 in the Big Ten. Very disappointing season last year in to start off for Lincoln Riley in the Big Ten. But they are on a massive recruiting heater. And expectations are high in Los Angeles that Lincoln Riley is going to be able to right the ship for USC in 2025. Your thoughts on USC overall, now that they're in the Big Ten, and your thoughts on Lincoln Riley?
Well, first of all, I hate them in the Big Ten because, as our voice said, I'm a traditionalist, and I don't like them there. I understand why they're here. It's a huge TV market. They've got a great tradition. Um, I think they have the ability to be a good team. I don't know that they have the ability to be an elite team in this conference. Lincoln Riley, I think he's a very solid coach, but I think he's very much underperformed since going to USC. I mean, he's got that reputation of a quarterback whisperer, and he had Caleb Williams. He did very well with him. But, I just feel like overall, he's really underperformed since going to uh, USC. And, he's a coach that I do actually like what he brings to the table. And I would like to see him have some moderate success, if for no other reason than it's good for the Big Ten, the more teams that we have that are having success. But at the same time, Eric, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this. I don't know that the schedulers did them a whole lot of favors this year to get them to the point where they're an elite team and competing for either the Big Ten title or even a playoff spot.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in just a minute. I think a lot of the shine that was on Lincoln Riley is worn out. I know that they're holding on hope out there in Los Angeles that he's going to be able to right the ship, like you said. But when I remember when Ryan Day was hired 7 seasons ago, he was being compared as to the next Lincoln Riley. Well, he's done past that up and then some.
Yeah.
And so Lincoln Riley, I think it's kind of where he needs to get USC going in a much more positive direction where they can see, yeah, he's going to be able to compete for Big Ten titles and get this team to the college football playoff. And if they don't see some of that this year, I wonder if the seat's gonna get hot
I
for
was
him.
just going to ask you, do you think if he doesn't make a playoff appearance this year, that he's on the hot seat?
Yeah, I think he'll be on the hot seat in 2026. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. All right, let's dive in real fast to what Chris and I what kind of like an overview real fast of them from last year before we bring on Brandon. So overall, USC was 7-6 last year, 4-5 in the Big Ten. This will be Lincoln Riley's 4th season out there in Los Angeles. He has a record of 26-14. Of course, the Trojans play in the LA Memorial Coliseum. USC has an overall record as a program 882 wins to 374 losses and 54 ties. They have an impressive bowl record of 36 and 20, and they have 37 conference titles. And looking at how things went last year, they started off well with a 27-20 win over LSU in to start the season off in Vegas, a 48 to nothing win over Utah State, and then Chris, after that, the wheels just fell off. They lost in the Big House to a mediocre Michigan team. Let's just call it like it is, 27-24. They beat a hapless Wisconsin team 38-21, and then they lost three in a row, including losses at Minnesota, home in overtime against Penn State, and at Maryland. They defeated Rutgers 42-20 at home before going up to Washington and losing that one 26-21. They beat Nebraska 28-20. They beat rival UCLA 29-13. Then they lost to Notre Dame 35-49 in out there in South Bend. And then they won their bowl game to get to that seventh win, 35-31 over Texas A&M. Last year, the over/under Vegas set them at 7.5. Chris, we both said take the over. I was at 8-4. You were at 9-3. And we were both wrong because they only got to 6 wins in the regular season. So we weren't correct in our prediction, but if I recall, we both said we said stay away from this one. This wasn't one that we were
Yeah,
confident in.
but they had such a soft schedule. If you really look at it, it was not overly difficult. The Michigan game, I remember watching that one, and there was some questionable officiating in there, um, that may have hurt USC a little bit. But that stretch where you're losing to three in a row, specifically the one to Maryland, is just kind of unforgivable.
Yeah, that's tough to swallow right there if you're a USC fan, man. That's not one that you want to remember, that's for sure. All right, we're going to go ahead now and we're going to go to our interview with Brandon from Light the Torch podcast. It's the sister podcast for us at the College Huddle. We will definitely be putting his link to his YouTube channel in the comment section below, so make sure you go check that out. If you're a USC fan, go give them a like, give them a follow. They do a great live show every single week on Sunday night, I believe it is, so you're going to want to go check them out, everybody. All right, here's Brandon. And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. You can see I'm joined by my special guest, Brandon Jones from Light the Torch podcast. Brandon, welcome to the OHIO podcast. Let's talk a little USC Trojan football, my friend.
Let's do it.
So, Brandon, let's start here, man. Expectations coming into the season, first year into the Big Ten. Overall, kind of what was your guys' feelings now that you're in the Big Ten, and maybe a little bit projecting a little bit forward into the 2025 season for the Trojans, second year into this conference.
Yeah, pretty much as expected. We're kind of lacking in the trenches going into last year. And then, it came back to the rear its head. So this year we've been focusing on, improving the trenches, especially on the defensive line. We've made a lot of moves in the portal as well as, recruiting. And I can tell you, being one of the few guys who did actually get to see the team this spring, it's night and day difference on the defensive line this year. So we expect to be able to finish these games. We lost mostly all our losses came in the bottom half of the fourth quarter. So just come from wear and tear and just getting beat up all day. That Big Ten football style, and we just didn't have enough in the trenches to finish these games. But this year, with the vamped up defensive line, I think we have a very good chance of doing that now.
So do you think that possibly, Brandon, that there was a different style of play and switching from Pac-12 to the Big Ten that maybe the roster wasn't ready for?
That's exactly it. Which that's nobody's fault, but Lincoln Riley and company. But I don't understand why we didn't prepare earlier to go into the Big 12 when we knew they were going into the Big Ten prior. But that was definitely the issue. But things seem to be. I think we're Big Ten ready now. opposed to last year.
What's the USC fan base think of Lincoln Riley?
Um, well, I said this offseason is bringing a lot of joy to the fan base right now, but we still have questions as far as his willingness to stick to the running game. Last year we ran the ball very well, but the issue was we didn't run the ball enough. So that's the biggest question mark. Did Lincoln Riley learn his lesson? Did he learn better clock management and how to control the pace of the game? And is he going to be willing to stick to the run game when it's working?
Gotcha. So I know he's kind of on a heater in recruiting. He's doing really well. USC's doing really well in 2020, the 2026 class. I'm assuming NIL is on an upswing over there. Things are looking good with that. The influx of money from joining the Big Ten, those type of things. Overall, as a program, do you feel like as a fan, Lincoln Riley's moving this program in the right direction? There's a sustainable future there, or is this kind of like we want to see it this year, and if not, maybe a hot seat situation? What's the pulse there?
A little bit of both. It's like Lincoln now has all the resources that was expected when you take the USC job. With robust NIL now. That wasn't the case. That was not always the case. I know people like to think that we had our stuff together, because it's USC, but we were very far behind, and that's just the reality. So now that things are kind of we caught up and everything. We're actually you could say that we're leading in the NIL. Now that seat does become a little hotter because you have no more excuses. What I mean? You're on the same playing field as the rest of the big dogs. The rest, like you said, the Ohio States and the Miamis and whoever else you want to name. So now those excuses are going away. So now you have to prove it on the field. If he does not prove it on the field, yes, that seat gets extremely hot from what we're hearing.
Does he have the defensive situation fixed?
I say yes, and I'm saying that for someone who, remember I mentioned a little earlier, I did get to see this spring. That defense looks night and day. Last year, we saw improvement, and especially, I think we did quite well considering what we had last year on the defensive line. But this year, I would say it's 10 times better than it was. So I think people are going to be very surprised on what they see on the defensive end.
All right. That being said, let's take a quick look at the schedule together here. But actually, before we do that, let's go over the roster here real fast. Let's talk offense first, and then we'll talk about that defense that you're pretty excited about. So I just want to throw what I perceive to be the starting lineup at you, and then you let me know, that's who it is, or maybe there's a competition at that position, and can let us know on that. So at quarterback, Jaden, and you help me with the pronunciation here, Mayava?
Mayava, yeah.
Okay, that's your quarterback.
Right.
At running back, we got Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders.
Yeah, 2 transfers that came in. One Raymond Jordan being from Hutch Community College, who was the JUCO Heisman. I forget what they call it, but he won the equivalent to the Heisman over there on the junior college ranks, and we expect some big things out of him. We've been hearing a lot this spring. Of course, no one's got a chance to really see him yet. But, we're hearing some big things from him, man. And, of course, Brian Jackson didn't get to, we saw him in the tail end of the season. He had a pretty good game against Notre Dame and as well as the bowl game, Texas A&M. He's really coming on. He gets a lot of comparisons to Lindell White. I'm not ready to quite give him that yet.
Yeah.
But you can see the resemblance, man. It's definitely there. He's a big boy, man. He runs hard behind his pads.
At wide receiver, we've got transfer in for the X. We got Prince Strachan, I believe is how you pronounce that. At the Z, you got Jacoby Lane, and at the Y, McKay. Is it Lemon or Layman?
Yeah, Makai Lemon.
Makai, gotcha. And that seems to be what the 3 starting wide receivers are, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah.
At tight end, we got Lake McCree. He's the redshirt senior. And then on the offensive line, now this is obviously offensive line's always interesting, but uh, Elijah Page at left tackle. At left guard, there's a transfer in DJ Wingfield. At center, we got John Ray Reed. Right guard, Alani Noah. And at right tackle, Tobias Raymond. Did I get that correct, or is there going to be someone else that possibly could be starting there?
No, for the most part, that's correct. I think the right tackle position will be a competition going all the way into the fall, maybe even into the season, man. With Justin Tuanu, he was a freshman last year. He filled in last year in the bowl game as Elijah Page went out, and he did really well. You know, no one it was kind of unexpected. You know, so he's putting his straw in the hat, man, to compete for that right tackle spot as well. So. Yeah, it could be either one of those guys, Tobias Raymond or Justin Tuano.
Gotcha. Flipping over to the defensive side, let's start up front with the ends. Anthony Lucas and Cameron Fountain. Is it Fontaine?
Yeah, Cameron Fountain.
Cameron Fountain, okay. And Anthony Lucas. And then in the middle, we've got Devin Tompkins and Keyshawn Silver, the transfer.
Right.
All right, no competitions there up front. That seems to be the starting four.
It all depends on packages. There'll be packages. I would say we're about a good 3 deep on the defensive line now these days. So, we also added Josh Jarrett from Georgia, 6'5", 350. Depending on who we're playing, he could get to start at the nose position, the D tackle position, But yeah, we got a lot of interchangeable pieces as well. Jakeem Stewart, freshman. He's been making some noise this spring. The kid is a real deal. Even though he reclassified, he's only 17 years old, man. He looks ready.
That's always crazy to think about, right? 17-year-old playing 21, 22-year-old men. That's wild. At linebacker, Eric Gentry is on the weak side. And then middle linebacker, we've got Desmond Stevens II. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then we've got at the cornerback position, we got Marcellus Williams on one side and DJ Harvey, the transfer, possibly on the other. Is there a competition there?
Yeah, you have DeCarlos Nicholson, who's very experienced, who's also, was a starter at sometimes last year. I don't know if we can pencil Marcellus in as a starter just yet. We also have Isaiah Rubin, Braylon Conley. There's some guys. So it's pretty much sewn up for DJ Harvey, but the other spot is pretty wide open.
Gotcha. At the nickel, Prophet Brown. That's a great name. Is that his position for sure?
There's competition. But
okay. Gotcha. All right. Would that be Isaiah Rubin?
Right.
Okay.
He did very well this spring, man. Isaiah Rubin. He's a guy who's very slept on in his recruitment. The guy that we found that's kind of under the radar, but he's been proving himself for sure.
And then at the safeties, we've got Kamari Ramsey and then Bishop Fitzgerald, another transfer. That's who we have penciled in as starters. Are we right with that, or is there going to be more competition as well?
No, I think the safety spots are sewn up.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're looking at this defense in a much more positive light. Of course, your former defensive coordinator from a couple years ago has moved on. Ohio State knows all about that fella. And obviously someone who probably doesn't need to be coordinating defenses in Division I college football. I think both USC Trojans and Ohio State Buckeye fans would be all in agreement about that. But the defense definitely took a step forward last year. We all saw that. They looked better. Year number 2 now under the new defensive coordinator. Is it possible that this USC team could be led by the defense in 2025?
Very, very possible. In fact, I expect it to.
Interesting. Okay. So, and which is, ironic from looking at it from the perspective of Lincoln Riley, who's always just, been an offensive guy, and now all of a sudden he's transitioning into a different era here of USC football with the defensive maybe possibly leading the charge here in 2025. Let's take a look at the schedule now together. You start the season off with a real banger. Missouri State comes into the Coliseum on August 30th, and then you follow that up a week later with Georgia Southern, two non-conference games that obviously USC should win easily. Your third non-conference game obviously comes later in the season against Notre Dame with a trip to South Bend. Let's talk about Notre Dame because obviously USC is going to be fine against Missouri State and Georgia Southern. There's been a lot of talk about whether USC should continue the Notre Dame rivalry in the non-conference schedule into the future. I think a lot of people not connected to the Big Ten don't understand that coming down the pike is going to be an SEC Big Ten non-conference game every single year. That's going to be something that these two conferences work out. And so I think USC is being a little bit proactive in looking at that. Am I reading the room correctly in that USC understands? Look, we're probably going to end up playing a Georgia, Alabama, an LSU, a Texas every single year in our non-conference, and it doesn't make sense for us to continue playing Notre Dame if they're not going to be a conference member. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. And the thing is, we now play in the Big Ten, the best college football, the best conference in college football. So we're always going to have Ohio State on our schedule, a Michigan, or we're always going to have these major brands on our schedule, along with that SEC, think that's going to be happening. So, I mean, from everything I've heard, we want to continue the rivalry with Notre Dame. We made an offer to move it to earlier in the season, to move the game, up, I think week one, and Notre Dame declined. So I know they're winning the PR war, and they're telling the world that it's USC, but we made an offer, and they did not agree to it. They want to keep things as is, and that doesn't benefit us. So that's what
Brandon,
it's.
as a USC fan, would you like to see it continue, or do you not really? Doesn't really matter to you?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely want to continue. I come from the PKO era, man. So it's anybody, anytime, any place. But that's that was the mentality of Pete, and that's kind of what we built the brand on during that era. But I understand as well. It definitely makes sense. There's other teams and whole conferences who put themselves at an advantage, to make it to the playoffs by doing things of this nature. So, I mean, I kind of have to follow suit.
Do you think that this might be a way for USC and the Big Ten to maybe force Notre Dame's hand at joining the Big Ten? Is that maybe something that's going on here as well?
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. They need to pony up and join a conference.
I like, yeah, they need to pony up.
Yep.
That's great. Obviously, the Notre Dame perspective on this is very different, and they cherish their independence. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens here because it seems like Clemson, or excuse me, Notre Dame has hedged their bets by trying to create this Clemson thing into the future, where they're trying to almost kind of replace USC. Do you think it's possible that Notre Dame would be able to replace that rivalry with USC, or do you think that no, it's too deep. Those scars are too deep to try to replace with someone like a Clemson.
Exactly, and it's the whole regional thing as well. What I mean? You're taking a team from the heart of the Midwest coming all the way to the West Coast and vice versa. You get a broader market with that game. And the tradition that's we're too far deep. We're too we're too deep in this thing that to try to start a new rivalry with a new team, it won't be the same. At least not initially, in my opinion. Um, But I really think Notre Dame is missing out on a great opportunity by not playing this game in week one. Can you imagine the headlines? To start the season with that game with
Yeah.
USC, at a neutral site. Imagine that game in Vegas or anywhere. You know what I mean? That's a big opportunity that I really think they're missing on.
Hmm. Very interesting. All right, moving on with the Big Ten schedule now for USC. Let's take a look at how that shapes up. You got to again go on the road to start Big Ten play in West Lafayette. That'll be a real banger. I don't see foresee much of an issue there. Then you got what I'm calling the battle for Troy. Michigan State and USC Spartans and Trojans. That's your first Big Ten home game. And then you have a sleepy good game at Champaign, Illinois on September 27th. USC at Illinois. Illinois might be a top 10 team to start the season. Um, as you look through that, again, I don't know. Purdue doesn't seem much of a risk to you. You get Michigan State at home. They're still kind of rebuild. Illinois is a different animal. Is that really going to be the first test on this schedule for USC is at Illinois?
I believe so. I believe so. We're not taking it lightly as fans, and I'm sure the coaching staff is right in step with us. But yeah, they're not a sleeper team at all. That's something that we have to really go into that game really prepared for.
Gotcha. And then your next opponent after a bye week is you host a team I'm familiar with as a Buckeye fan, the cheating scum from Ann Arbor, known as that team up north to us. I refuse to say their name. We call them Ishigan around here. We don't like that letter that the name starts with. Old school rivalry. A lot of Rose Bowls played between USC and the Wolverines. This is going to be another interesting game here, especially after going to Illinois 2 weeks before that. And it's a week before you travel to South Bend, Indiana to take on Notre Dame. Is this a bad spot on the schedule to play a team like Michigan?
Yes, and this is exactly what we're trying to avoid with the whole Notre Dame game. You know what I'm saying? These type of
Yes.
stuff. But I'm confident that we're going to handle business at home. But yeah, this is exactly what the issue is for us.
That makes sense. I'm glad you shared that with me. I did. That makes sense now that I see it and look at the schedule like that. Illinois, or the team up north there in the maize and blue. Which one actually do you think will be more difficult for you guys? Do you think it'll be Illinois because it's on the road?
I do. It's a road game, first road game of the season. Us never having traveled to Illinois. I think well, at least not in a while. But yeah, I think that'll be more difficult than the home game against Michigan.
All right. After Notre Dame, your last 5 games here in the conference, you traveled to Lincoln, Nebraska, to take on the Cornhuskers on November 1st. You host the Wildcats of Northwestern on November 7th. A week later, you host the Hawkeyes of Iowa. And then the last two are some old Pac-12 rivalries here. You travel to Eugene to take on the Ducks, and you host UCLA. We'll hold my questions for UCLA at the end here. But Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon. As a USC fan, looking at that block of 4 games in the conference, what do you anticipate would be an acceptable outcome for USC in those 4 games?
I say dropping one of those would be the only acceptable outcome. I mean, I was a great opponent. Don't get me wrong, but we owed them. Kurt Ferentz had some choice words about Lincoln Riley that came out of the blue. I don't even know why he decided to attack Lincoln Riley.
Well, he's old and senile, Brandon. I mean, he's been coaching since before the face mask. So I mean,
So yeah, we definitely got payback on our mind for that. Oregon is not considered a rival, but they're a rival. I mean, you know how Oregon fans are. I don't even have to explain. Uh, we that game has been circled. We got kind of screwed. We played them at their place last time. Was the last time we played them. We're kind of hoping for a home game, but it's back in Eugene again. But sorry, man, it'll make it that much better when we go up there and take care of business.
What do USC fans think of Oregon? Let me have it.
I can't use that language. Yeah. Uh, yeah, but you get to that. It's not great. Nothing good to say. I'll tell you that.
What do you think of their jersey selections?
You,
You got USC who never changes their jerseys, right? They're traditional, they're classic, and you got Oregon who's like every week we're gonna make up something new. I always find that a clash of styles like that to be interesting. But yeah, Oregon fans have made themselves well known to us Buckeyes. That is for sure. I assume all you USC fans just kind of got a chuckle at it and be like, yeah, we told you.
yeah, we warned you guys. Uh, well, I got a chance to be there in person where you guys handle business in that Rose Bowl, so
Nice.
that was fun to watch.
Yeah, little Jeremiah Smith just running all around him. They had no answer for him. So yeah, okay. So I see that. Now, what do you think about Nebraska, up and coming team? They've got some higher expectations. You got to go to Lincoln. That's not an easy place to go to. Huge stadium. They've sold it out for decades. You want to talk about a rabid fan base, man? They love their football, even if they stink. They still love it. Some of the nicest fans, by the way, in college football are in Lincoln, Nebraska. But that's going to be an interesting trip. Second year, Dylan Raiola at quarterback for the Cornhuskers. Good test, I think, for him with your defense, particularly. That's one of those games that I kind of have circled, Brandon, that if USC is going to make a push for the CFP, that's a game they have to win. That's a game that Lincoln in the past has kind of fumbled a little bit, and you're like, what are you doing? You can't lose that one, man. Is that kind of the same mindset that USC fans have going into that game this year?
Yeah, we're feeling pretty confident about that game. We know Dylan Raiola will have some growth this year, but I think we did a pretty good job last year with what we had against them. So we're feeling pretty confident going into it. But yes, that is a game that could get ugly. Being on the road is a very hostile environment. Although Nebraska fans are very nice, it's still a large crowd. That's going to sell out the stadium for sure. I will be in attendance at that game. I already had that one circled. Grab me a Runza and sit down and watch the game. Man. So
You
look,
you are Buckeye. You know all about the Big Ten already. Grabbing a Runza, he said. He knows. I love it. All right, man. Let's talk UCLA USC for a little bit now. This is the crosstown rival. For someone who doesn't know, for us Big Ten people who aren't familiar outside of, it's played at the end of the year and you both wear your home jerseys and you both have iconic colors and everything. From a USC fan's perspective, what is this rivalry? What makes it so big, and what are your feelings about UCLA?
who?
UCLA.
Oh, those other guys cross town.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
He said who?
yeah. We're forgetting about little brother now. But yeah, the coach had to remind us that they're also in LA as well. So
Yeah. Right. Right. So is it really like they're just a little brother? I mean, that's how you view them. They're kind of
lately, lately. But I will say I will give them this credit. They're on a little bit of a heater right now on the recruiting show, man. And to be honest, as SC fans, we're kind of happy to see that too.
Why is that?
Has not quite been what it used to be, and I think both teams firing on all cylinders will definitely bring that back. So even though it's the greatest crosstown rivalry in college football, in my opinion. The schools are only 11 miles apart. You might be partying with the players party with each other, run into each other at parties or clubs or whatever in the city. It's that close. So, yeah, man, we'd like to see that rivalry be restored, if you will.
Sure.
And be more in the limelight. But
You guys have kind of had your way with them. 51 wins, the 34 losses, and 7 ties in its history. Of course, that would be even greater if 2004, 2005 hadn't been vacated. But the last several years, and the last 4 times these two teams have played each other, it's 2-2. So it's not like UCLA is completely laid over in this time period. But it does feel like USC's ahead of schedule compared to UCLA in the rebuild type of where they're at. And if a win this year would give you guys 2 in a row, which haven't happened since 2019 and 2020. That being said, you know, when you think of UCLA, I know you called them little brother, but maybe what is it about them? Like, is it an academic thing? Is it, are they kind of the smart guys, or we're the smart guys and they're the rich kids, or like what's the kind of titles you would have put on them?
Upper class, lower achievers. We got all kinds of things. But,
I'm really trying to poke you, Brandon, to get you maybe a little bit of trouble here.
I'm sure it's gonna be clipped up, but yeah, man. There's all kind of trash talking banter as far as academics and football as well. But yeah, they like to. They're in a more affluent part of town, so they like to look down on us, I guess you could say.
Yeah, okay. I figured there was some of that going on there. Okay, I got you. So the USC is more of the common man, LA fan base. Okay, I got you. That's good. That's good. All right. So looking at that schedule, 12-game schedule there, we kind of highlighted a couple games, and so we highlighted Oregon, we highlighted Michigan, Illinois, and Notre Dame as kind of those upper echelon games, and then we also mentioned UCLA, Iowa, and Nebraska as the middle tier. What is the absolute floor, worst case scenario for USC this year in your mind, and what's the ceiling for this team? Kind of give me the range there.
I'd say 8-4 would be the floor. And I would say, yeah, so with a 10-2 would be our ceiling.
Okay, so it's kind of close there.
Right.
All right. What is, and 10-2 is going to get you in the college football playoff more than likely. Right. So that's is that the expectations this year? Is to at least be in the talk for that at the end of the year, or is this a you got to get there type of year? You got to get there. Okay. And if you don't, Lincoln Riley's on a hot seat. That's kind of what I'm getting from you.
Pretty much.
All right. For those of us who aren't USC fans, us Buckeyes, give me some of the traditions that USC has or holds that are fun to know about.
So when you're walking from campus to the Coliseum, there's a what do we call it? A light pole that you have to kick on the way in.
Okay.
Got a tire biter. There's a hole. There used to be a dog, but the students named him George Tire Biter. He used to run around the campus biting people's tires, man, on the bike. So school kind of took him in as a secondary mascot. So now he's passed. I hope that they bring him back. This is years ago. It started in the 30s, I believe. So yeah, this is an old one, but of course there's the lighting of the torch, the Olympic torch that we have at the Coliseum that we light at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and that's where our name comes from. The podcast, Light the Torch podcast. And let's see, what's another tradition we have? There's so many, man, that we can get into.
I love the mascot on a horse with the sword and all of that. That's cool.
Yeah. I think we have one of the more awesome mascots in the game. As well as Florida State as well. I put them up there. There's plenty, man. That's why we love college football, right?
All right. I'll lower my volume in case your wife's around. USC cheerleaders, are they the best looking?
Yeah, the Song Girls, they're pretty. Yeah, they're pretty. Yeah. Song Girls are pretty up there, man.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Brandon, where can everybody find Light the Torch podcast out, my brother?
right here on YouTube, man. Find us Light the Torch Podcast. You can follow us on X. That's at underscore Light the Torch. You can follow us on Instagram as well at Light the Torch Podcast.
Go check him out, everybody. Brandon Dunn from Light the Torch podcast, part of the College Huddle network that we're all a part of. We appreciate having him in the College Huddle and as a sister podcast to us here at the OHIO podcast. Have a good season, Brandon. Maybe we will meet up in Indianapolis for a little Big Ten championship this year. Maybe that would be fun. We haven't been on each other's schedule the first 2 years, so maybe we'll have to force this thing. I don't know. So thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. And we want to thank Brandon from Light the Torch podcast for joining us for our USC preview. And as you heard right there, Chris, he's super high on this team. He's very positive. They got a lot of positive juice in that program in the fan base, man. Which I guess it's good for them that, that they feel more positive in Lincoln Riley, that they believe that he's got this program going in the right direction. You know, the offseason that they've had one of the better off seasons when it comes to transfer portal, recruiting, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it still begins and ends with Lincoln Riley and his ability to get this USC team heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm just not sold. This is a team that you talk about how positive the fan base is, and that's great. I mean, they aren't to the level of delusion that our friends are in Ann Arbor. They aren't to the maybe as critical as we are in Columbus. But they are very positive, and I think that's good for Lincoln Riley. I think that's good for this team. I think it's going to help them play a little looser. Knowing they've got that positive support behind them. But ultimately, when they get on the field, I just don't see it, Eric. I don't see them as a legitimate playoff contender this year.
Neither does the betting the booking the bookers there in Vegas, man, in the house. So let's dive into their schedule, Chris. Let's go ahead and
Mhm.
open up their schedule and let's give you our predictions for the USC Trojans in 2025. So they have a couple easy games to start off here, to start the season off. They play Missouri State and Georgia Southern at home. They go on the road to our friends in West Lafayette, Indiana, to take on Purdue. And then they come home against Michigan State. Chris, they better go 4-0 there.
Yeah, I've got him at 4-0 to that point. Now, the game after that against Illinois, is that what that is?
Illinois?
Look at the way it's spelled. It's Illinois.
Oh, jeez. Did you catch that right away?
I did.
You son of a gun.
Yeah, that's one where, that's a team that I'm really high on this year. So to me, I think this is probably where they take the first loss.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think that's an L. Then they get a bye, and then they take on Michigan.
And, I've gone back and forth on this one. I almost feel like this is a flip it game. If it was in Ann Arbor, I'd probably give Michigan the advantage. Um, at USC, I just think it's a toss up. And for some reason, gut tells me to go with Michigan in this one.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going USC in this one. I have a feeling that Michigan's not going to have the year that their fan base thinks they're going to have. And that could be for a multiple of reasons. And so here on now, Chris and I, we do have the right to change our predictions before the season starts because we are making these predictions in the middle of June here. So just put an asterisk by that. We do have the right to change some of our predictions before the season starts. But given what I think is going to happen, I'm going to take USC in this one. However, the following week they travel to South Bend, Indiana, to take on the Fighting Marcus Freemans. I think that's an L.
Yeah, as much as I don't like Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame's going to just wipe up the field with them.
Bye week at Lincoln, Nebraska. That's not going to be an easy game.
No, and I went back and forth on this one as well. I actually did take them to win this game, but Eric, I'm not sure who the favorite's going to be for sure. But I'm going to tell you right now, whichever team is, don't take that team to cover because I think this is going to be a very close game.
Versus Northwestern, that should be a win. Versus
Yep,
Iowa, again, they get them at home. I think that's a win at home.
I agree.
At Eugene, Oregon, I find that to be L number 3 on the year for them. And is that going to be L number 4 for you?
L number 4 for me, yes.
And then they finish the season against crosstown rival. Yes, there's another school in Los Angeles, in case you didn't know that. Um, that should be a win, but it should be.
Yeah.
I'm still taking it as a win, but yeah, I think UCLA is going to be a little improved this year.
Yeah, I think they're like I said, they're going to be good. They're not going to be great. They're not going to be elite. They're not going to be a playoff contender, but they will be over by 500. They will be bowl eligible, you know. And as long as they get it, pointed in the right direction, and these young kids that are coming up can step in and do something special, I think they're a year or two away from being a contender.
So, Chris, you have them at 8-4, 6-3 in the Big Ten. I have them at
Yes.
9-3, 7-2 in the Big Ten. That's where we have them. And so we both think they're going to cover that 7.5, but not enough really to feel totally confident about that, especially you, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one, if I'm putting money down, this is one of the teams I'm avoiding right now.
Now, interestingly enough, as we record this here in the middle of June, uh, just came out, like I think a day ago, that Nick Saban said in the Big Ten, USC is his dark horse to compete for a Big Ten title and make the college football playoff this year. Does that sway you at all?
No, Saban's old and senile, it's
Tell us how you really feel.
he's out of touch with today's game. So I'm not swayed. Hey, listen, he's possibly the greatest coach of all time. I agree with that 100%. I have no faith in Lincoln Riley. I've got even less faith in what they've got going on at USC right now. Like I said, I think they're a year or two away from being a serious contender if they stick with Lincoln Riley and ride this thing out.
If USC goes 9-3, Indiana goes 10-2, or Illinois goes 10-2, which one of those two teams, being Indiana or Illinois, compared to USC at 9-3, would the college football playoff committee take? Would they take a 9-3 USC over a 10-2 Indiana or a 10-2 Illinois? Because notice, I guess the Illinois one, if they play head to head, that kind of answers that question. But let's make it Indiana.
It'd have to be
Let's
Indiana.
let's say Indiana goes 10-2
I
and
think you take
USC goes 9-3.
USC if it's me, only because I believe USC, as I look at it, plays the tougher schedule.
Have you seen
Um,
Indiana's schedule? They play both Penn State and Oregon.
yeah, and USC has
The
Notre
one
Dame at Notre Dame.
That's the one thing that USC can put their hat on is that they play Notre Dame, where Indiana's non-conference schedule
But here's the other thing: they both
is
have
not good.
is it two or three like opponents as well? Because they both play Oregon, they both play Iowa. They also both play Illinois. They got some common games where you can get an eye test to kind of
Sure.
see. But you know, Signetti was the darling last year. I don't think it happens this year. Um, I honestly think that this is a moot point because I don't think Indiana is anywhere near 10-2. But and the other thing is, let's face it, Eric, if you're the playoff committee and you have to choose between those two, and you're thinking which team's going to give me more ratings,
I don't think the playoff committee does that though.
oh, I guarantee you they do.
Oh well. Chris has been in the most meetings apparently.
Money is always the bottom line. Always.
I don't like that. Well, let us know what you think about what we think down in the comment section below. What's your prediction on USC this season? Let us know what you think the Trojans are going to do in 2025. Chris, we're off and running. There's the
First
first
one.
one. One
One
down.
down, 19 to go. Or 17 to go.
I'm like, wait a minute. Did we add
I'm,
two more?
I'm, I'm expanding already. I'm expanding again already.
When that happens, Chris, we're going to have to start our previews at the beginning of June.
Yeah. Get
That's
ready. It's
crazy.
coming.
Oh,
It's coming.
Lord. I hope not. Let us know what you all think down in the comment section below. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out. We're off and running. We got 17 more coming your way. We'll be doing 2 a week. Check them out. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Ring the bell so you get notified. Great content all summer long until we kick off in late August here on the OHIO podcast. Till next time, you all know what to do. Be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. Chris, OH.
I hope.
Go Bucks.